All right, we'll try it again. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
This is William Baker, and on behalf of the entire Choral Foundation family, I want to thank you for being a part of our summer master classes through the Institute for Healthy Singing. I want to thank Jamea Sale and our entire faculty for their excellent work in assembling these interesting and exciting programs. The Choral Foundation is here to serve you through elite ensembles like the William Baker Festival Singers and the New South Festival Singers, specialty ensembles like Kansas City Bronze and Zimria Festivali Atlanta, our summer groups in Cobb County and Atlanta and Kansas City and in Lee Summit, and educational programs like the Institute for Healthy Singing, the Institute for Choral Creativity, our Choral Scholars Program, the Sullivan Choral Library, and Choral Conversations. During these difficult times, great music, music of timeless beauty and worth, helps us keep our spirits up and helps us look toward a brighter and better future. Thank you for being a part of our summer program, and please remember to contact us at festivalsingers.org or at mail@festivalsingers.org if we can serve you in any way. God bless.
Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see so many people in our presentation this evening. This is the first of a series of 6 classes. And I'm Jamea Sale, and Christine, you want to wave or say hello or something? She's the co-hosting this evening. I will be talking about anatomy and physiology in terms of the vocal warm-up, and Christine is going to actually take you through some singing exercises. Hopefully you all got your materials from down on the resource, the resource page. A few quick administrative tasks. Make sure that you add J Sale at Healthy Singing to your contact list in your email. I've had probably a dozen emails that keep bouncing back to me. And I just want to make sure that you're getting all of the communications from me. Another thing, we are going to automatically mute everyone except me and Christine, just so that you can hear the singing and everything clearly and not have distractions. We've been asked to record this show, and hopefully that will turn out okay. If it does, we'll make that available to everybody if you want to go back and review something or catch it later. If you don't want to appear on the recording, it's okay. Just turn off your camera so we don't see you. I think most of the time we're just going to see a few faces in the recording. If you have a question, we're going to field those during a Q&A at around 6:30, 6:35, somewhere in there. So, around 7 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry, around 7 o'clock, that's right. And so if you think of something while we're going through the show, send it by chat or just jot it down on a piece of paper and hold on to it until we get to 7 o'clock. And we'll address as many as we can, and we'll go at least till 7:30 if we still have questions. So once again, welcome. It's great to see you all. Give me a wave so I know you're hearing me. All right, awesome. Okay, so tonight we're talking about whole body singing. And this is important because we all know that if we have a sore throat, a husky voice, if we have a traumatic injury to the voice, we don't sound like ourselves.
Hey,
and
Jamea,
when that happens,
Jamea, can you enlarge the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Or
how's that? Better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay. When we don't sound like ourselves, we don't feel like ourselves. So taking care of the voice is a really important thing to do, especially for singers. In the US, there's about 7.5 million people currently having trouble using their voices. I've been working in an otolaryngologist office this past semester, and there's all kinds of injuries that can happen. When you have a voice disorder, it simply means that the vocal folds aren't vibrating the way that they normally do to make a clear vocal sound. So that can be anything from hoarseness to from overuse or misuse, or cancer, or maybe a nerve that has lost feeling. As singers, we can do some things to prepare the voice for what we call athletic singing, or, you know, a public speaker would do the same thing. So this really boils down to a body awareness to help prevent disorders from happening. I really encourage you all to look at the back end of the packet when you have a second that was provided you for this meeting. And there's some vocal health things. It really is important to understand what your voice sounds like when it's normal. So if something starts to go wrong, you can be assessing that to help prevent disorders from happening. So we all know one big thing that we talk about, singers are real big on hydration. We talk about it all the time, and there's a reason for it. When we are hydrated, we can sustain our voice longer, we can reach higher frequencies, and we are better performers. And this isn't just for professional singers, it's for everybody, because we all have the same anatomy. Here I've got an image of some vocal folds. Hopefully they don't gross you out too much, but I've got my little cursor here. These white things are the vocal folds. See that they're very stretchy, they look wet. That's because they have viscous material on the inside of them. That's from hyaluronic acid. I had to practice saying that. Hyaluronic acid bonds with water. If you don't hydrate, the hyaluronic acid cannot do what it needs to do. Out here are the false folds. When the proper folds aren't working, sometimes these false folds will get over involved in the singing, and then we get some voice issues that are really uncomfortable and not healthy. Go on here. So one thing to keep in mind is that it isn't just about how much water we've had in a day, it's about how often we're drinking during the day. So we really want the hydration to take place all through the day and not just all in one big moment. Hydration, when you're thirsty, you're gonna have vocal fatigue. So when that happens, you've got increased vocal effort, you're not gonna have the pitch range that you usually do, and your vocal folds aren't gonna close properly, so you're gonna hear kind of a breathy sound come out. That's one way to assess whether you've had enough water during the day. We all know some drying factors that will affect us personally if you have allergies or something like that, or perhaps there's a medication you take. But just also be aware if you're in a room where the air is really dry, or if you're doing extra physical activity in a day, or if it's super hot out like it is around here right now. My husband had a fan blowing on his face the other night and woke up and he could hardly talk. So these are all some things just to keep in mind. You can counter that with room or ductwork humidifiers, hop in the shower and stick your head in the steam, breathe through a wet cloth. The sinus rinses, if you're having any kind of vocal problem, that is first line. That's where you want to go to first, is the neti pot or sinus rinse. And nowadays you can buy just a little squirt bottle that is already pre-mixed and it kind of just mists up into your sinus cavities. So those are really good to have. For about 30 bucks, you can get a travel nebulizer, and that actually changes the fluids into something that you can inhale, and it actually goes onto the vocal folds. That's really the only way you can get fluid directly onto the folds. Otherwise, it's all by getting into the bloodstream through drinking and humidification. Okay, Christine, I think it's you.
All right. So hydration is definitely number one. It not only keeps our vocal folds working well and well oiled, just like a car, so that there's no friction going on, but it's going to keep our whole body healthier and keep all of our organs hydrated. Something you may not have thought about is eating. So if you eat something healthy before you sing, that can also get your salivary glands going. So something you may not have thought of. I know some of us try not to eat right before we sing for other reasons, but Warm-ups is the next tool that all of us have. And if you're a choir member, I'm sure you've been through many, many warm-ups. But we like to take us through 5 steps: physical, activating the breath, gentle low voice singing, then spend the majority of our time in mid voice, and then opening up our upper register. Warm-ups should be done purposefully. I don't know about you, but I have definitely been through a choral warm-up where I spaced out. I went, oh, I've done this before, I'm going to think about my to-do list. If you're doing that, you're missing the point a little bit. Try to avoid going on autopilot during warm-ups. Try to pay attention to what your body's telling you. When you're stretching and when you're singing, pay attention to your muscles and to the ease of singing that's happening, or the ease of breath support and making your sound happen. So I think, Jamea, I'll hand it back to you to kind of talk about some of the muscles we're going to be using.
Okay. When we're doing our warm-ups and singing, we often aren't thinking about all of the muscles that are involved in making that happen healthily and efficiently. When it comes to singing, we want to eliminate any tension that we possibly can. And when you look at a picture like this, it's hard to believe how many muscles we actually have that are going to be taxed while singing. I'm going to go on to this next slide and just get a little close up to the lips. You can see just even the articulators are circled with bands of muscle, and they pull them up the lips side to side and open them up tall. You see these muscles going up here. They lead up into the jaw, widening the nostrils, lowering the chin, and then moving down into the neck. Christine?
And I mentioned earlier about participating in choral warm-ups, but this is also the individual singer's best tool. So this is something that you can do on your own, and I would recommend doing a little bit of it every morning before you're going to talk or sing. But this is just going to really wake up your vocal folds and get your body in the right place to do your singing and talking for the day. So focusing right now on all those muscles we just looked at around the lips, we're just gonna do a few things. So if you feel like you need to take yourself off a video to really try these all the way, that's fine. But I think it'd be kind of fun to watch each other do this too. But so just to play with some of those muscles, I just want you to do your best pout. I want you to stick that lower lip out and just feel the relaxed feeling of sticking it out. And then come back to your normal, like, resting face and just pay attention to what that feels like, the relaxation. All right, and when you're taking your selfies, you know, a duck face, try that. Stick those lips out, they're both forward and tense, and then come back to that relaxed position. And you just really feel how those muscles are working. Like this awesome little girl in the picture, I want you to try the surprise inhalation. So this, like you're surprised and you have this uncontrollable inhalation. And then let it go and just feel the difference between those two things. And this one's kind of fun too, if you're not an instrumentalist, to play trumpet and tuba, you have a different kind of buzz. Your corners are tight, but to play trumpet, you have just a little bit of loose lip in the middle. See if you can make that happen. I'm sure that sounds really funny. But then to play tuba, you have to have more of your lips loose. So it's more like, so your corners are still tight, but you have more of your lips moving. So just kind of fun to play with some of the different ways the muscles in your face work. All right, Jamea.
So what Christine was just basically doing there was what we call body mapping. And that's where you're really in touch with what muscles are being activated and how it feels to use them in efficient ways and inefficient ways. So it's always a good thing to test out, well, what does tight feel like? When I'm working on tall, relaxed, open vowels, what does that feel like versus one that's tight and inefficient? I wanted to put up just a little bit more detailed picture of the tongue because this muscle is so incredibly big. It goes clear down to the hyoid bone, which is right here. You see where my cursor is. The hyoid bone is the first part of the larynx that you encounter when you look down the throat. The tongue is manipulated by all these muscles right here. And if you think about it, your tongue can come out all the way. It can be pulled way back so that you almost are choking. You can lift it up, the tongue tip. You can lift the tongue tip up to the roof of your mouth. You can stick it out and lift it up. You can stick it out and point it down. There's all kinds of things you can do with these muscles. So there's a lot of things to coordinate when we're articulating and singing. And then I want you to notice, see where it says styloid process up here? This is a little pointy spot right behind your ear, like if you had an earring that was dangling down from your skull. And this is also a suspension for the larynx. So there's a lot of things happening here. We're also getting into the soft palate with these muscles and the area underneath of the chin and going down into the neck. Okay, Christine.
Some of the most common problems for singers happen with the tongue. That big old muscle gets in the way sometimes. So we're just going to do a little more muscle mapping, body mapping, and we're going to do what this lady on the slide is doing, and just stick your tongue out. And then kind of leave it relax. And okay, yeah. And pay attention to how little you really need to use your tongue to do that. Yeah.
Can you do it without your jaw or your chin moving too?
Yeah. Just completely relaxed. So that kind of gives you the idea of how you can vocalize without using your tongue and your jaw muscles a whole lot. Just some other things you can do is just see what you can do with your tongue. Stick it out. Can you turn it upside down? Maybe you can do one of those cool tricks where you can like make folds in your tongue. Some of us can, some of us can't. I can do this one, but I can't do the other one. Touch the roof of your mouth. Feel all the fronts and backs of your teeth. And just kind of brings awareness to you. And I always feel a little bit of stretching right in here as well, which I always feel is helpful before I get singing. And then there's just other things you can do to mess around with singing exercises with your tongue out. You know, if you sing, you know, if you're doing a warm up, like, do it with your tongue out. And see if you can relax all those muscles in there. All right, Jamea.
All right, we also got to think about this jaw. I asked you to think about when you were sticking your tongue out, whether you could do that ya-ya without moving your jaw. It's always fun to notice what's moving that doesn't need to move. When we've got muscles moving that don't need to, we're losing efficiency in our singing. So I'm showing you this picture here for you to notice the masseter muscle, which is huge, and the temporalis muscle. And these muscles, the masseter especially, is the strongest muscle in your body. Both of these muscles are closer muscles. They pull the jaw up. They work to help you close your jaw. Interestingly, there's not an opener muscle. Those muscles, to open the mouth, you just literally drop the jaw. You have to release these. So it's kind of fun to notice that those, when they get tight, that jaw isn't going to do exactly what you think it can do. So Christine?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that can really help out is a little jaw massage. So if you can find where your earlobes meet your skin right here and just come a little bit forward, you're gonna feel those muscles we were just talking about, and you can just give them a nice little rub. And try to let your jaw just drop open like Jamea was talking about, just release those muscles. And see if you can close your jaw, not by bringing it up, but by bringing the top of your head down to it. And then keep it in that space. And if this is feeling really good, feel free to keep going. And you can take that massage up a little bit, down a little bit, wherever you're feeling it feels good. And then you can drop your jaw and try to move your chin side to side just with your hand. And if that's tough for you, then jaw relaxation might be something that you need to do some work on and practicing and really focus on.
All right, so I put this picture in. We're still looking at these muscles here, but I want you to notice where the hyoid bone is. If you put your hand just right underneath of your jaw and just very gently squeeze, the hyoid bone is right underneath of the jawline, and it suspends the laryngeal process. So this is the voice box, essentially. It's surrounded by muscles and tissues in the neck and the pharynx, and it's suspended from that hyoid bone. So we can actually move it around a little bit in the neck. This muscle is the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which I have practiced really hard to be able to say well and fast. It's kind of fun. It could be a warm-up all in itself, I think. But it's like the most superficial cervical muscle in the neck. It elevates the sternum and the clavicle on inspiration. So when you breathe in, it helps to lift the rib cage a little bit. And then here's a picture. You can see it in this lady with her head turned. And Christine was going to do something with this, I think.
Yeah, I think we should do a warm-up. Sternocleidomastoid, sternocleidomastoid. Everybody, not tongue twister. So just if you want to put your hands here, you can really feel that muscle. Just look down at the floor. Look up and then look over your shoulder. And you'll be able to feel the opposite way of your looking. You can really feel that. And then the other side. Try and keep your chin level. Back to the center, and then take your ear to your shoulder. Center, and then the other side. And that's just a little workout for your sternocleidomastoid.
Another muscle we're just going to touch on is the omohyoid muscle. Omo stands for shoulder or scapula, and I just want you to notice, I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see that. Here we go. It runs underneath of your sternocleidomastoid and all the way down here to your clavicle, and it also is a suspensory muscle for the larynx. So that's another one that you can kind of be working on when we're doing neck massages and stretches.
And just to kind of check out that muscle, put your fingers from both hands at the front middle part of your neck and swallow. Do it a couple times or swallow hard, and you'll feel sort of an up and down type movement, a downward movement, and then it comes back up. And that's the omohyoid muscle's job, is to make that downward motion happen. And while we're there, just go ahead and gently, you're right around your larynx there. You can just sort of gently push from side to side, very gently. You can just feel that it's movable. It's not static. It's not like a bone in one place, but it's pliable.
Okay.
So now we're going to start into like sort of a warm-up routine or stretch routine that you can do on your own. If you're a choir leader, that you can take your choristers through. But like we had mentioned before, we're always going to start with the physical. So I'm going to ask you to stand up or sit up in your chair, whatever's easiest for you. And just as kind of a disclaimer, don't do anything that is not good for your body. We are all built differently. We are all different ages, and all of us are capable of doing different things. So if something is hurting, causing you pain, or making you uncomfortable, please don't do it. But if you want to stand up and give these a try with me, we can do them together. So starting with just sort of daily movements. So things that you're going to do every day in your everyday life is always good, just to do them purposefully. So the first thing we're going to do is keep your shoulders stationary and just, you know, stand comfortably and just look at objects around the room, but look at them purposefully. So like, I'm going to look at the ceiling, and then I'm going to look out my next room's window. But whatever's in front of you, just turn to look at it purposefully and just notice what's happening in your body. Look at the floor, try to look at something behind you. I'm going to try now to notice that I need to mop. So these are motions that your body's going to be doing, you're going to be doing with your body every day. And now we're just really paying attention to them. So still thinking about all those muscles in our face, I want you to keep your lips closed and pretend like you're chewing gum, like obnoxiously. And another way to sort of wake up your facial muscles is to just explore some emotions. So a little acting here, show us your face when you're shocked. Or when you're like ecstatic. Okay, just won money. Or when you're really sad. Or pouty. And then silly faces are always fun. So something else that you could do to sort of pay attention to how your head is centered on your body. I want you to move your head back like somebody just told you something you don't believe. What? Like get that double chin going. What? And then bring it way forward, like try not to move your shoulders, but bring it way forward like you can't quite see what's on the screen. And then that, what? And then forward, and then find that centered position. And sometimes when you do that, you realize, oh, maybe I kind of stand like that sometimes, or I have my head sort of craning forward all the time. We want to make sure that it's really nice and centered and relaxed. And then just for a little extra stretch, you can put your chin up to the ceiling and then bring it down to your chest. And you just gently put your hands on the back of your head, just add a little more weight. And you can feel that go all the way, like partway down your back. And again, you don't need to do all of these stretches every time. And maybe some of them don't work for you and you have another stretch that does work for you. That's great. The idea is that you are focusing on the muscles that you're going to use and you're paying attention. And so it's almost, besides a physical warm-up, it's almost like a mental exercise as well. Things you can do, squeeze your shoulders way up to your ears and release. And do it again and release. And then you can cross your arms in the front of your body like this and just pull away from your chest. If you can see Jamea, she's going different directions. She's going up and to the side, all those things. And then if you can, grab an object behind you, or if you can reach your hands back to touch, really open the front of your chest. Another motion that you do daily is just reach for things. Reach for something up off the top shelf. Reach for something across your body. Pick something up off the floor. just sort of natural movements, and really visualize that you're picking them up. You're not going, I'm moving my hand across my body, but oh, look, I'm hungry. There's some French fries, you know, whatever is natural for you. Then to just start to use more of the body, we can tilt. You can see the girl in the picture has her hands up here, just sort of tilting from side to side. One that feels really good for me is a twist. And then kind of like a swinging motion, cross your arms down low and then cross them up high too. I just totally did like a cheerleader thing there so you can see the top of my hands. That's fun too. And to just sort of get the lower body involved a little bit, you can do like a front fold or a roll down. So a roll down would be like, bring your chin to your chest, shoulders forward, and then just sort of vertebrae by vertebrae, bring it down. Get down as far as you can. If that's your toes, awesome. If not, that's awesome too. And then you just reverse it to come back up. You can sort of feel some hamstrings in there, hips, all those things. And another one you could do is just sort of a fold down with breathing. So like an inhalation, and then exhale. And then come like halfway up with an inhale, go back down. And then bend your knees and come on up with another inhale. And at this point, I would suggest anything that you feel like is still tight in your body, you want to add another stretch there. So if you're feeling like, oh man, like my hamstrings are really tight, I've got a cramp in my calf or something like that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but all of our muscles are connected. And so if you've got tension in your pinky toe, you're probably singing with tension in your vocal folds. So the more tension you can release while you're stretching, the better.
Amen to that. So that kind of gets us into just stature. I try to avoid talking about posture because it connotates a staying, a positioning where you're held. Christine, did you have something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, just like she said, like Jamea said, just not thinking so much about standing tall or standing straight, but more thinking about balance. And I love the word Jamea has in our slideshow, buoyant. But you can think about aligning points in your body. Sometimes I think about, you know, my head's over my shoulders are over my hips are over my feet. So you can think about that. Or sometimes I say just stand where you don't need to pay attention to your body. Nothing hurts, nothing is tense, more tense than the other. You know, if you pop your hip, you feel that your abs have to work in a different way and your back has to work in a different way. But if you're just standing in a way that's comfortable for you, and you don't really have to pay attention to your body. So if you can find that, that gives you that buoyant, balanced posture and almost like you're ready to go. You're stable, but you're not static. You're not a statue.
The most stable singers, if you go up and try to give them a shove, they're just going to walk right out of it. They're not going to tip over. If you're holding, you will tip over if I came up and gave you a shove. So just a minute to talk about that forward head posture that like I'm doing right now because I'm trying to look at the computer. But for every inch forward of head posture, it increases the weight of the head on the spine by additional 10 pounds. I think that's just an amazing little thing to keep in mind because we're all about spine health, especially as we get older. We want to keep that spine flexible and healthy. And the more we rehearse forward head, the more it's going to stay there. If you look at this fellow right here, his larynx is under strain behind the sternocleidomastoid, the omohyoid, and the other muscles in his neck because of the way his head is being held, and that is not a healthy position for singing. All right, so we've gone through a physical warm-up, And we're going to talk about activating the breath and initiating sound a little bit.
And I just talking about breathing, obviously you can't sing without breath. And you all were born knowing how to breathe, and tension and stressful situations have sort of taken that natural way of breathing out of us. So something I won't do right now, but will recommend, is laying on your back on the floor and breathing. A friend has told me, try to breathe like you're on your 3rd day of vacation. So you've gotten out of your habits now, and you're really ready to relax. Just to sort of feel those muscles, hands right around here, and we're just going to go shh, 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 and really, really try to feel this movement here. Make sure that it's not here, shh, 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 but you're really moving air. Shh, 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 shh. And as singers, we're not going to have that tight feeling in our body to make the shh sound. So I want you to change to a puff, puff, puff. If you really try to puff that air out, you're going to feel that movement too. Puff, puff, puff. Or paw, 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 if you want to add some voice to it. And something that I really like to do is to take a breath, inhale, sort of like we were doing our stretches earlier, and you're going to inhale and fold in half. And then inhale again and do your and you're going to feel those muscles in a way different way. You're going to feel some movement here, some expansion on your back, and you're going to feel those muscles in a totally different way when they're kind of squished against your legs. So do that one more time for me. Just go or add some voice. Pa, pa, pa. And then come up slowly and inhale. All right, Jamea.
Unmute. We were just working out the diaphragm muscle, which we have some misconceptions about. Sometimes we say breathe from the diaphragm and we imagine that it's a contracting muscle. It's not a muscle you have control over. When you set up the conditions right by aligning the body properly and releasing the muscles of the abdominals and in between the rib cage, then that diaphragm is prepared to move down. At rest, it's in an upward kind of umbrella position, and when it's activated, it comes down, and just by sheer physics, that's gonna change the ability for air to fall into the lungs. And I want to note one more thing here before we go on from the ribs. Do you see right here where my cursor is pointing? Those ribs are cartilage, and there's actually a little joint right there. And there's another place in this system that we have a lot of flexibility that we often don't think about. We sort of ignore the low ribs, but the ribs are able to open all the way around the body, and that diaphragm splits across the body. It's a sheath muscle that divides the top half from the bottom half. I'm going to return to the laryngeal anatomy just for a second, just to show how many little parts and pieces there are to the larynx that have to be coordinated. Here's that hyoid bone again, where everything is suspended. And then this is the trachea right here. That larynx can rock and roll, tip back and forth, and you can actually move it side to side with your hands. It has to be able to vibrate, so that's why we talk a lot about releasing tension. We need tension release so that all these little intricate muscles can move fluidly and do what they need to do to open and close the vocal folds, which we looked at a little bit earlier here. This yellow that's been marked on these slides is just designating the arytenoid joint. And it's a joint that swings the vocal folds closed together when we're phonating. They don't vibrate by themselves. They only vibrate when air comes through. So we have to have good air. And then they swing open when we breathe. And then looking down here, I want you to see that there's a lot of layers to the vocal folds. The white part that we see is ligament. And the ligament doesn't develop until, after our voice changes. All right, so we have been through all of the anatomy, if not quickly. And Miss Christine is going to take you through a little bit more of the exercises to round out starting singing. And here you go, Miss Christine.
All right. You have a handout that was emailed to you, and I'm going to do a few of the exercises off of that handout. So if you've got it up, I'm around page 6 to start with. I'm sorry, page 7. And we start with the low voice, which is where we do our speaking. So it's usually a little bit already, used first thing in the morning. And so that's where we start our warm-ups. And I've got on here lip trills, hums, and small open vowels. It's going to keep it really nice and loose and relaxed when we're using those things. When you're doing this part, just starting the voice, the actual singing part of your warm-up, you want to really monitor your breath support and the intensity of your sound. So right here at the beginning, we're not singing as loud as we can. We're not pushing. It's just sort of a connecting breath to sound. One of the exercises that's in your handout is just a descending fifth. So it sounds like this. And for those lip trills, you're going to need a little bit of tightness in the corner of your lips. Mostly going to need a lot of air. So this is a really excellent transition from that breath focus to adding sound in your low voice, because your lips won't trill if you don't move air. And then you can do that same exercise and just switch to a hum. And a hum is really good about bringing your attention to your resonators. If you're humming and you've got an open space, you're going to feel buzzing in your face. It's that vibration, those sympathetic vibrations in your sinuses, in your mouth, in your nose. So do that a few times. Just hum with a really open space, put your lips closed, and see if you can feel some of those vibrations happening in your resonators. And once you've brought your awareness to the resonators, you can open up to an E or an OO vowel, which is still a small space and a focused sound, and see if you can still feel those resonators buzzing a little bit. Ooh, ooh, or ee, ee. And we like to start with descending exercises, ones that start high and go low in that lower part of our voice, so we're not pushing or using tension at the beginning of our exercises. And you can spend as long as you want in that low voice, but we're going to spend most of our time in the mid voice. This is your tessitura, where you're most comfortable singing, where you have your most natural sound. And this is the time to work on or to explore those different elements of singing that we use when we're singing lyrics: flexibility, articulation, leaps, diction, singing consonants with maintaining open vowel space, things like that. So on your handout, if you're not looking at it, it's fine. But we're still on page 7 going into page 8. We've got some like higher range descending intervals, so we can stretch that out maybe to an octave. So, ooh, and just bringing that whole thing all the way down. Slides are always really good. There's a little yodel exercise. So we have like, and that's going to do something like to get everything moving quickly and increase flexibility. I'll do that one more time if you want to do it with me. And you can think about not landing hard on those lower pitches, like, but keeping it in that tone of the first pitch. Tongue twisters are always fun. You can set any tongue twister you want to go pitch. One that I do often is 99 Nuns at an Indiana Nunnery. If you know other tongue twisters, you can just pick a pitch and sing them. It's like 99 nuns at an Indiana nunnery, and move them up by half step. You could start high and go low. 99 nuns at an Indiana nunnery, 99 nuns at an Indiana nunnery, 99 nuns at an Indiana nunnery. So it's really fun to just hop on the internet and search tongue twisters, and there's so many, you will be shocked. And then long tones in that mid-range are going to help us out with breath, sustaining our breath and being consistent. So just an example, we can sing ba, ba, bee, bo, boo. So we're starting to introduce some of the more open vowels, introducing consonants, and really working through that mid voice. I know I'm going quickly, but I want to make sure that we have some time for questions. And going on to the high voice, that's the last thing you're going to do after you're feeling really healthy in your mid voice. And then we can start to continue to use those larger vowels. I recommend staying away from consonants if you're really working in that higher range so that you can keep the open space. And moving is good because so that we're not introducing tension, because we're going to better section of our voice. So just like moving up by half steps, we have like ha 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 ha. And what's really fun with this one is you can sort of bend at the waist. When you get to the high notes, you go like ha 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 ha, and you don't even think about how high you're singing when you start doing that. There's a couple of really awesome exercises that Jamea included for our gentlemen, bridging your voice from the falsetto into your full voice, and I would really, really recommend taking a look at those. Singing scales, and one that's fun is to just kind of move your whole body. You can sway, you can just move your arms, and going vive va, vive va, vive va. Or when you're getting up into the really higher part of your register, you can bend those knees to remind yourself to stay grounded, not to reach for the higher notes. So, you know, vive va, vive va, vive va. Whatever kind of movement is going to keep you relaxed and really keep your attention off of how you're singing at that point. So there's a few warm-up ideas for you, and I think we're ready for questions.
Yes. All right, have we got any in the chat room?
So far we just, a few people sorry, Joyce was wondering if you can distribute the PowerPoint. But,
I'm gonna try to, if the recording works okay, I'll try to distribute the recording to begin with, and we'll see, hopefully that'll work. Good question. Christine, I have a question. Why are you moving so much when you are singing?
A couple of reasons. My first reason is because your whole body is your instrument, and engaging the body helps to engage the voice fully. And another reason is when we stand and sing, many of us have been trained to be still when we sing, to look professional, and that can introduce a lot of tension. And so moving during warm-ups just eliminates some of that tension. The shoulders don't get tight if you're waving your arms around.
Questions? Feel welcome to unmute yourselves or raise your hand and we'll try to find you.
Okay, so we have a question from Neil, and he says, any additional tips on bridging head-chest voice for male voices?
Yeah, I can take that one. So what I really like is the pweep, 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 and it's on the handout that you got. But if you start maybe around, it depends what your voice part is, but somewhere where you're comfortable, maybe around your G3 below middle C, pweep, pweep, pweep. Let's see, what was it? How does it go?
Weep,
Weep, weep, weep, weep. There it is. Weep, weep, weep. It's a descending thing. Then up by half steps. Weep, weep, weep. Weep, weep, weep. You're kind of throwing it out, your voice out like it's a little dart, and you want to not feel the weight coming into the voice from the low voice there. So really almost like you're calling out to somebody who's far away. Weep, 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 like that.
All right, and then any suggestions for warm-ups that help clear the sinuses? And I would start with the humming for sure. I don't know that it's a magic fix for clearing sinuses, but when you get those resonators happening, sometimes it can shake things up a little bit. Jamea, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, anything where you're vibrating your vocal folds, and especially the NG kind of sound, humming, that kind of thing is going to get that stuff moving, and it won't take long. Your body will respond.
Okay, from Kate, as we get older, why do we lose our range, especially sopranos, on those high notes?
Yeah, so as we get older, as with any joint in the body, there is degeneration. So those arytenoid joints that I showed you on the PowerPoint slide will break down a little bit, especially if they're not being used in a healthy way. There's ossification. So all of the parts of the larynx that I showed you are cartilage when we're younger, except for the hyoid bone. Everything else is cartilage. But as we age, those cartilages ossify, and as they ossify, we lose some of the flexibility that we normally have. Another thing is that just like any other tissue in the body, we have some drying and thinning that goes on. So those vocal folds also are not able to stretch and be as limber as they were when we were younger. So all of those things can add up to loss of range. The best thing to do is to keep exercising it in a healthy way, but also to know where your limits are, because if some notes are getting out of reach, forcing your voice up there is only going to cause problems and potentially inhibit your ability to sing healthily.